All right, and we are live. Let me see what we got here. Oops, that's for later. Just gonna do some audio checks, and we will get started in just a few minutes. Actually, I think the audio checks worked. Oh, well, yeah, we'll do some audio checks. But we're getting set up. Just make sure that the mics is here. If you are tuning in, happy Sunday. I'm gonna be doing a very short live stream, I think, just because some of my questions I've been getting have been building up, and I've just struggled to answer messages. So these are just a very easy way for me to engage with the overall public in the community and also get some of my tasks done. Okay. Okay, looks like its audio is good. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, this should be a pretty short live stream. It's been a while since I've actually done one of these monthly live streams, which I think it's been since June. Yeah, June was my last one, but I've done live streams in general. So these are AMAs specifically targeted at just answering questions that come up. But anyways, for some housekeeping, I try to host these once a month to engage with the community, to answer questions, and hopefully allow many people to kind of like benefit from these questions, because many questions I get are almost always the same type of questions, just in different flavors and formats. But if you ever are interested in submitting a question, please go check out briankfung.com/AMA, where you can go ahead and submit questions. And then usually I'll just go down the list and answer the questions as they come in. I'm trying to work through my log here. But anyways, I'm going to just go ahead and get started. We have a couple of questions here, and hopefully I can get through at least 3 of them. I think they might take some time, but I enjoy just kind of thinking through these questions live here on the spot, so you can kind of get a sense of how I think through these. But let's start with the first one, which looks like it is a fun question. And I think this was submitted by one of my close friends. So let's see if this fits here. Sweet, it does. Okay, this should be a fun question to answer. So the question is, if streaming Twitch was a thing while you were at your prime in WC3, which is Warcraft 3, if you guys weren't familiar with that, would you consider becoming a full-time streamer, and what would your life be today? So I'm not sure how many people who follow me know about my past. If you did follow me from like maybe when I started building this YouTube channel seriously in 2016 or 2017, you know that I have a very extensive gaming background. So I used to play very competitively, and I try not to touch games at all nowadays because it's just very addicting. But yeah, I used to be a pretty big gamer. In any case, directly to the question, I was ranked like top 25 in Warcraft 3 back in the day in like early 2000s. So I assume that's where the question came from. So while you're prime, would you consider becoming a full-time streamer? So I think the answer will probably be yes, just because I'm so addicted to gaming. And I think it would have been really cool. I think I used to look up to some undead player on Warcraft 3 that I think his name was like Mad Frog or something like that. And he won one of the WCG competitions in early 2000s, and it was like $50,000. And back then it was like a lot of money. And so I did certainly consider becoming a full-time streamer because it could have been a real thing. And I think esports have continuously grown in popularity over the years to where it probably would be a viable choice. I'm not sure if I would have done it for the rest of my life. I feel like after pharmacy school happened, things just really shifted to very career, professional oriented kind of living. And I guess if I was a gamer, I don't know, my life probably would be just games every day. And sounds pretty fun. I think like, now that I'm more mid-career, if you will, or midlife, I think it probably would not be as meaningful to me versus before. So I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, but that is what's on my mind. Okay, so let's move to the next question, which seems to be a pharmacy/informatics type question. And I think there's Not a direct question here, just a lot of context. Let me see. I was thinking of getting this degree. Okay, so I'm gonna read this off, but I'm not gonna post the entire thing because it's way too long. Or let me do this. I also don't want to share too many details so people can figure out who some of these people are. So someone sent me a message that said, I wanted to get your insight. They are currently a clinical pharmacist at a small community hospital, and they wanted to branch into informatics. They're currently transitioning technologies. I'm not going to name what technologies. And I asked if I can participate in this transition, and they said no. And they already have someone specifically assigned to help. I was thinking of getting my MBA in IT from some school because of AI changing our world, and I don't want to be left behind. I was thinking of getting this degree and also apply for Epic Pharmacy Informatics. And that was the message. So I guess a couple of things here to think about. One, sorry to hear you weren't selected to participate in the transition. For someone who's trying to get into informatics, those are amazing opportunities to get into because they're great. They're much more accessible than, let's say, getting a job in informatics or looking for specific projects outside that can add to your resume and build your experience. Wherever you're working, especially if you're like a hospital pharmacist or even a community pharmacist, doesn't matter where you are, doing projects that are very technology or informatics related at your organization is one of the best ways of getting hands-on, just because they already know who you are. I guess with that said, there are many opportunities in technologies these days. So I'm sure many more opportunities would come, and I would encourage you to continue to ask for these opportunities. Persistence definitely wins, in my opinion, at these organizations because they know you. They're like, this person's very interested, and they keep asking for opportunities. So I would encourage you to keep trying and keep asking. Maybe just not the right time, right place for this particular project, but I'm sure others will come. The second is maybe your comments about getting an MBA in IT because of AI changing the world and feeling left behind. So I have a lot of thoughts on education, especially higher education. And I've done some videos in the past, which I'll share maybe in, actually, let me see if I can find one now that I can link because people who are watching this can kind of look at it as well. Here are some old ones I can link into here. Actually, let me share my screen so you can see. Chrome tab. So if you go to my website, briankfung.com, I have a FAQ over here, and I actually need to update this because there's just a lot more questions that I get nowadays that it'd be great to post up here. Here are some thoughts I've had on higher education, and it isn't particularly directly answering your question, but it gives you some of my thoughts on just different master's degrees that can take you down very different paths, right? So you guys can check that out on your own. Maybe I'll say a couple of things to this. Feeling left behind probably feels real right now. And if you are in this like AI computer science space, you probably are familiar with Andrew Karpathy, who recently made a comment about feeling very left behind, even though that guy is very successful. He was like the head of AI or something at OpenAI and Tesla, I think it was. I don't remember his titles. Very intelligent guy, and he also feels behind. So I empathize because I'm sure many people feel behind given the rapid innovation that's happening in AI. But directly to this part is, I'll say a few things in no related order. Number one, there are a lot of education that is free. So definitely take advantage of that if you want to learn. YouTube is great. Let me share one real quick, just as a very tangible thing. Most of my education when it came to artificial intelligence, especially implementing it, has come from Stanford during my time doing their graduate certificate in biomedical informatics. And Stanford, many of those courses are free. Stanford costs a lot of money. It's a private organization, but many of them offer free courses. Stanford is one of those people. You can actually find this. I'll leave it in the link as well. Let me see if I can comment this and post it in the chat. But if you can't, just like search this up. They have a bunch of free courses, and these are all the courses that you would get if you took their AI course. And many of these courses I was going to be pursuing. I looked at some of them before. They're fantastic. So if you feel like you want to learn AI and you want to learn it cheaply, because I think that's really important, right? Costs. Definitely check that out. The other thing is there's probably people that have differing opinions on this for this part, which is MBA versus something else. So artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is a very hard technical skill. And those technical skills are not learned in an MBA. It's learned in a more science-based degree, like a MS or a PhD. And in those cases, I would probably argue getting a MS in AI, MS in data science, MS in computer science, artificial intelligence, something like that, to take advantage of learning more so the foundations of AI versus going to business school. The flip side to argue against that would be just that MBA. If you're looking for more of like a leadership / strategy type role, that could be an option too. But I always feel as though having some technical foundation, and perhaps you have some already, is a better foundation to have than going to business school versus the other way around. It's just my kind of bias. But if the MBA is affordable and it's something that you feel passionate about, then I would say go for it. You know, some of the MBAs I was evaluating in the past were the M7 MBAs, and all of them are like upwards of like 200, 250,000, way too expensive. And I probably wouldn't have done it. If there was an MBA that I may have considered that was close, was probably the one from Quantic, much more affordable. It's like less than $10,000. You can do it in 1 year. But that would only be if I wanted to move up more of the strategy leadership route by checking off that MBA checkbox. But yeah, so I'll say that. I'll definitely encourage you to do some education on it first. People, if you're going to any type of field that has AI, I think it's very easy to tell when someone doesn't have like some foundational knowledge. And I think a STEM sort of degree would help you a lot more there, because AI is just, there's a lot of fundamental basic statistics, math, computer science things embedded in there that they won't teach you in business school. And I say that from not having been to business school, so take that with a grain of salt. And maybe to your last point, and I'll move on to the next question, is applying for Epic Pharmacy Informatics. I'm actually not sure what you mean by Epic Pharmacy Informatics. So there are pharmacists employed by Epic, but there's not many of them. I think there's like 5, not more than 10, I don't think. But I assume you're not talking about that. But if you are, then that'd be great. I think more clinical people at Epic is always a good thing. I don't know how many people they usually hire that are in pharmacy, though. I think they usually are looking for more of the technical engineers, implementation people, project managers, things like that, and less of the clinical folks. Or if you're talking more so working at a Epic organization as an informatics pharmacist, I would assume you're talking about that more so. If that's the case, that's great. I think one of the challenges right now is that many people have Epic certifications, And unfortunately, because there's just so many more people that have that certification nowadays, many organizations, anecdotally, are primarily hiring people that already have those certifications. So if you don't already have it, it could be a little bit more difficult. But um, maybe two things to comment on that is, one, if your current organization is a Epic organization, try to do your Epic proficiency for Willow, which is the pharmacy application. Definitely try to do that. That will give you a leg up in that you have some Epic training already. If not, definitely try to see if there's maybe smaller organizations, or you can try some bigger ones too. Some other applying for those jobs that are sponsoring that certification. You know, it still happens to this day where people will still hire people and train. You seem like someone that is very eager to learn and open to learning. So I think people love that. And so you may have a pretty good shot of getting that even over people who already have their Epic certification. I've actually found a lot of people that have like many different Epic certifications come off as a little egotistical in their applications. I've reviewed quite a few of them. And I usually would take the person who's much more hungry to learn and eager to learn versus someone that comes in and thinks they know everything. But I don't know if this is what you're looking for. I hope that my thoughts here kind of help. Otherwise, feel free to respond back, message back, and I'll do another one of these and answer more. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question, and I think I'll wrap up after that. This one seems to be about pharmacy and informatics too. Maybe a little bit of fire. I see HL7 fire in here. Let me see where the actual question is. Okay. So I'm not going to post this whole thing too. It's fairly long, but I'll post the very last part, which is more or less a question. And I'll read through this. And because this came in a private message, I'm not going to share all the details if there's details in certain parts of these. So here's the message goes, thank you for connecting. It was great going through your profile. I am truly inspired by how you merged your pharmacy and informatics background. And I recently watched a YouTube video where you were explaining your journey and what advice could be useful for people who want to pursue this path. I'm curious if the advice I gave at that time is the same I'd give now. I feel like sometimes I change just because times change, you know. But so you've built a impressive career. Your journey really resonates with me as I'm currently exploring a similar path of transition myself. Kudos to you. Good luck. Transitions are always fun in this space. I'm very excited to share that I will be pursuing a health informatics program. Congrats to you. That's awesome. Also, kudos. I just enjoy people who love to learn. That's great. And before this, I've taken some HL7 courses on HL7 Fire. Also great. We gotta love Fire. Hosted by, and I won't say the name of the organization. I would love to share some work I did. Definitely feel free to message me any of your work. Happy to look over anything that you have to share, and love to learn from your experience how to further navigate this path. Thank you so much. Looking forward to your kind response. I know your time might be quite busy. Okay. Let me think about how best to respond. More so directly to that question. Learn more from your experience on how to further navigate. So there's a lot of things here. You're, I believe, a pharmacist. I don't think I saw anything that suggested that, aside from merge pharmacy informatics. I'm going to assume you're a pharmacist, and I'm going to answer from that perspective. So you're doing a health informatics program. Fantastic. You know, I think any sort of education, assuming you're a pharmacist and you want to get into informatics, and I assume you probably don't have a residency in this case in informatics, pursuing some sort of informatics, formal education in informatics is great. You know, there's a lot of things you learn. Like I always quote my own experience of learning bioinformatics from my time at Hopkins doing my MPH, and it just fundamentally changed how I thought about approaching informatics problems. Some sort of formal education helps. And then when I was doing the biomedical informatics training at Stanford, I also realized that it completely changed how I think through technical computer science problems. And these formal degree programs, um, I think, generally help you become a better practitioner at this career path that you want to take, which is kind of a blend between pharmacy and informatics. So that's great. Um, Keep going on. The material can be boring at times, but maybe a practical piece of advice as you're going through this is I found that applying that knowledge really helps. So whether it's at work or on a side project, when you take the concepts that you learn from those formal informatics trainings or those programs and you apply it, that's the best type of learning. Oops, did I have stuff here? Okay. Oops, I missed some stuff. I did have a quick question. There's a question on the chat, which I'll get to in just a second. But let me finish this question. I'll get to that in the chat. So, talked about the health informatics program. Try to look for opportunities to apply. And then the next thing is HL7 Fire. Like, there's a lot of comments here. Maybe I'll say a couple of things, and hopefully this will give you some ideas of directions you could go. The first thing is fire. I was actually telling my mom about this yesterday. My parents are in town right now. Is fire became a huge thing in the US. It's been a huge thing for a while, but in 2020, because it was cemented by the 21st Century Cures Act, which means people actually have to care about it because it's part of the law now. But then in the last year, there have been a ton of regulations that have transpired, basically double downing on fire. So HTI 5, let me actually just show what that is. HTI 5, for those who are not familiar. Let me just share my screen real quick. You can just Google search it. HTI 5, I always forget the different words they use for the acronym: Health Data Technology and Interoperability. It's one of the different policy rules that is being put forth by ASTP ONC, and HTF5 was one of many to continue to double down on fire. And I think part of the things, I don't know if they say it anywhere here. Let me see if they have it. Yeah, I think part of it is here. So a lot of the emphasis here, and I'm certainly oversimplifying it, is one, a huge focus on fire. They are definitely elevating fire as the new modern standard to do a lot of implementations around. So if you're taking HL7 fire courses, this is a great time, right? Because it's going to be a highly desirable skill set. The second thing, I guess, is it kind of underpins this. I don't know if I see it in here, but they're retiring a lot of the older standards. Not that they're not using it anymore, they're just not part of the certification programs. So it's still going to be supported. So things from like HL7V2 or CCDAs, so this is part of a deregulatory piece of policy. So they're just making it not part of the policy anymore. Really double downing again on fire and retiring some of these older standards. I'm trying to figure out how to connect it to the question posed here about learning about the experience. I think mainly trying to say that if you continue learning fire, you probably will have a lot of opportunities out there for you, especially if you're doing this like informatics, coming from a pharmacy background and also learning fire. Perhaps I'm a little biased, but I would say that there's a lot of unique opportunities for you if you continue down this path. Now, what I would also say is I've actually been learning about fire for many, many years, and I never really connected the dots until one, I worked at Verily, where I had the opportunity to actually implement fire solutions. And then number two, when I started to experiment with full stack development little over a year ago, maybe like a year and a half. And when I was learning how to actually implement Fire, like connecting to a Fire server, creating Fire resources, using Fire resources, exchanging Fire resources, and then especially going back to Verily, I spent a lot of time modeling Fire resources, or rather, modeling use cases in Fire that really taught me more about Fire. Despite me knowing about Fire back in like 2016, 2017, I just didn't really understand what it was or what was its purpose. So maybe similar to the comment I made about the health informatics program, it's when you start to apply the knowledge that you learn from these things, be it your courses in health informatics or HL7 Fire, that's when you really learn. And it really starts to connect the dots there. So I would encourage you, maybe as a general short answer to your question, apply, apply. And what I mean by that, find a project that's interesting to you. Maybe it's like a topic in like infectious disease or cardiology. Maybe it's something cool that you saw that exists out there. Try to apply what you're learning and build towards that. And I think that's a great way to learn. It's really about the application more so than the didactics or the conceptual. All right. Let me end the note on this question from Twitch. Do you work with LLMs? I do. I guess I can answer this in many different ways. I started using ChatGPT, which I'm sure everyone's like doing these, or a lot of people are doing these days, right? When it first came out in November 2022, and I've grown from using it from just like kind of like a chat interface to starting to program with it, or rather code with it. And I don't remember if I talked about this in the past. I have like mixed feelings about the whole idea of vibe coding. So I spent a lot of time using it to basically write code that I just blindly accepted for maybe most of 2023. And maybe sometimes I do that now too, if I'm just trying to do like a prototype or something like that. That's great. I hate that now because I've recognized quite a bit in working with full stack applications that a lot of the code that they produce is garbage. Maybe like 20% of it. I shouldn't say a lot of it. But if you let an LLM run wild coding stuff, it in my opinion, at least in the short term, it is not very scalable. And so I typically like to use it to help me code while I make the final decisions on how the entire software should be architected. But yeah, so maybe a very long-winded way to answer your question. Yes, I like to use LLMs. I use LLMs probably every day, be it just like quick searches. Sometimes it replaces some of my Google searches. Sometimes it doesn't. I just don't always trust the stuff that comes out of it because I feel like there's still a decent amount of hallucinations that come out, depending on how you ask the prompt. I use it primarily to do a lot of, you can call it vibe coding. I use it to help me code. So I use it a lot for that, and it's fantastic. And then I guess the other thing is I learned how to implement it using primarily Python back when I was studying for my biomedical informatics certificate. All right, I think we're ended there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Happy Sunday, and we'll see you next month. Bye.